There is a kind of guilt that doesn't come from doing something wrong. It comes from doing something new. Not the sharp guilt of hurting someone intentionally. Not the obvious guilt of crossing a clear moral line. But a quiet, lingering guilt that appears the moment you choose yourself. Most people experience this guilt when they say no, even when they are exhausted, even when the request is unreasonable, even when they know, deep down, that no is the honest answer. And yet, the guilt arrives anyway. Most people assume this means they are selfish, or unkind, or emotionally immature. But that isn't what's happening. What you are feeling is not a moral failure. It is a conditioned response. And in the next few minutes, I want to help you understand where it actually comes from and why it doesn't mean what you think it means. Most people misunderstand guilt around boundaries. They believe guilt is a signal from their conscience, a sign that they have done something wrong. So, when guilt appears after saying no, they immediately question themselves. Was I too harsh? Did I disappoint them? Should I have explained more? Should I have just said yes? And so they either go back and reverse the boundary, or they carry the guilt quietly, replaying the moment again and again. But here is the problem. If guilt were truly a reliable moral guide, it would only appear when you violated your values. Yet for many people, guilt appears precisely when they honor them. This contradiction is the clue. The guilt you feel after saying no is not coming from your values. It is coming from your conditioning. For most people, this conditioning began long before adulthood. It began in environments where being good meant being agreeable, where love, approval, or safety depended on how easy you were to deal with, where expressing needs created tension, withdrawal, or conflict. So you adapted. You learned to anticipate expectations. You learned to smooth things over. You learned to say yes quickly sometimes before you even checked in with yourself. And this adaptation worked. It kept you connected. It kept you safe. But it came with a cost. Over time, your nervous system learned a simple equation. Saying no equals danger. Not physical danger, but emotional danger. Disapproval. Distance. Rejection. So, even now, when those consequences are no longer real, your body still reacts as if they are. Eckhart Tolle speaks about the conditioned self, the part of us shaped by past experiences, rather than present reality. When guilt arises after setting a boundary, it is not your true self responding. It is the conditioned self, the part of you that learned to survive by staying agreeable, the part that believes connection must be maintained at all costs, the part that equates harmony with self-abandonment. So, when you say no, your mind does not ask, is this aligned with my truth? It asks, will this cost me love? And the moment that question appears, guilt follows. This is why guilt does not feel like a thought. It feels physical. A tightening in the chest, a drop in the stomach, a restless need to explain yourself. Because this response lives in the nervous system, not the intellect. Your body remembers a time when saying no had consequences, and the body learns through repetition, not logic. So even when your mind knows you're allowed to say no, your body has not caught up yet. This does not mean you are weak. It means your system is recalibrating. Ram Dass often spoke about the roles we unconsciously play. The good one, the reliable one, the understanding one. These roles feel safe because they are familiar. But they come with an invisible contract. You must keep being who others expect you to be. Saying no threatens that contract. And that is why guilt appears not because you are doing harm, but because you are breaking character. The guilt is the ego's way of saying, stay who you were, don't risk change. When guilt keeps you saying yes, something else begins to grow. Resentment. Not loud resentment, not explosive anger, but quiet resentment that turns inward. Fatigue, numbness. A sense that life is happening to you rather than with you. Because every time you override your truth to keep the peace, you distance yourself from yourself. And the body notices that loss. This is why trying to say no without guilt often fails. Because guilt is not the problem. Obedience to guilt is. Guilt is simply a leftover signal from an old survival strategy. It does not mean stop. It means unfamiliar territory. The goal is not to eliminate guilt immediately. The goal is to recognize that guilt is not the authority. You can feel guilt and still choose honesty. Louise Hay taught that patterns dissolve through awareness, not force. So instead of fighting the guilt, notice it. This is an old response. This is my nervous system learning something new. No judgment, no self-attack, just awareness. And each time you hold a boundary and survive it, your system learns. The world does not collapse. Connection does not always disappear. And even when someone is disappointed, you remain intact. Boundaries retrain safety through experience, slowly, gently, repeatedly. Each honest no becomes evidence that self-respect does not equal abandonment. And over time, the guilt softens. Not because you were forced it away, but because it is no longer needed. Boundaries do not push people away. They reveal who can meet you without you shrinking. And guilt does not always mean you did something wrong. Often, it means you did something unfamiliar. So, if choosing yourself feels uncomfortable right now, that does not mean you are selfish. It means you are stepping out of an old role. And that discomfort is not a warning. It is a sign of growth.